Guys, Pedro Pascal is gross.
I'll Pedro again, and let me tell you, Marvel is having one of the, no, I'm not going to say one of the, it is the worst PR disaster we have ever seen for Marvel. So let me set the table for you. The Fantastic Four will be releasing in less than a month now. In less than a month. And do you know what Marvel is having fun with right now? Besides Pedro?
Working against the Fantastic Four. Between the reshoots, between the failed test screenings, lackluster test screenings to be very specific, and Pedro's politics getting in the way. And I think that the main one here is indeed Pedro's politics. But
Marvel didn't just take a hit this weekend, they got annihilated. Their final Hail Mary pass, their last-ditch effort to salvage the decaying MCU, landed flat on its face. And at the center of the wreckage, Pedro Pascal. Yes, that Pedro Pascal, the Mandalorian helmet guy, the TikTok daddy meme, the actor who became more famous for being memeable than marketable. Marvel bet everything on him, everything. And now, after Fantastic Four's embarrassing box office fizzle, it's clear, the gamble failed, the final hope crumbled, and with it, so did any illusion that Marvel is still the king of cinema. Marvel's downfall didn't happen overnight.
The reshoots labeled as problematic. There's been a lot of pushback going against this film as well. There's a lot of Marvel fans that aren't quite fond of the fact that they are using Shala Bal, the female Silver Surfer played by Julia Garner, well above the character of Norrin Radd. And that's just one thing. We also know that Pedro Pascal and his politics are not helping, and it's only getting worse from this point forward.
This wasn't a sudden collapse, but a slow, painful decline. A death by 1,000 Disney shows, lackluster scripts, and forgettable villains. Remember when Endgame shattered records and united generations of fans? That era is gone. What followed was a never-ending content faucet, spewing shows like She-Hulk, Secret Invasion, an echo that left fans not just underwhelmed, but exhausted. By the time Brave New World and Thunderbolts hit screens in 2025, even the most loyal MCU stans had started to check out. Marvel promised 2025 would be their big comeback. Instead, it became their most humiliating year yet.
What led the Disney company to engage in an emergency meeting to cancel multiple events for Pedro Pascal to drastically reduce his presence on television and on the internet. Now, in a very similar way, ironically to what happened with Rachel Zegler,
Marvel wasn't just betting on another superhero movie with Fantastic Four. This wasn't a side project or another filler entry in the already bloated Phase 5 lineup. This was the reset button, the supposed turning point, the Hail Mary pass Marvel hoped would magically reverse years of declining interest and internal chaos. After multiple flops, endless controversy, and Disney fatigue setting in like a virus, Fantastic Four wasn't just a movie, it was Marvel's last lifeline. The problem? That lifeline is already fraying. Heading into 2025, Marvel hyped the year as a triumphant comeback, a clean slate with 3 major titles lined up: Captain America, Brave New World, Thunderbolts, and Fantastic Four. But while the headlines screamed Marvel is back, reality had a much different tone. The first strike came with Brave New World, a film that arrived with all the energy of a soggy sandwich.
The upcoming Superman film, Superman himself has managed to take some shots at Fantastic Four first steps. Yup, he's making fun of Fantastic Four. That's what I'm gonna put in the headline because that's what all the articles are saying, because they need to manufacture, I guess, a rivalry, because you can't just enjoy both. We know you can't. One or the other. You can't enjoy both. And God forbid, you might be excited for Jurassic World. Not allowed.
A Captain America movie without Captain America energy. No real fan engagement, no stakes, no buzz. Just a forgettable outing that audiences barely acknowledged. Critics yawned, fans shrugged. Marvel moved on like nothing happened. Then came Thunderbolts, a chaotic Frankenstein of rejected Disney characters and leftover plot lines, desperately stitched together in a way that confused even its own cast. The movie was messy, tone-deaf, and bloated with wasted potential. It bombed harder than a Brie Larson tweet, delivering yet another slap in the face to longtime fans craving coherent storytelling. Which brings us here, the third and final swing. Fantastic Four.
We all know that under the woke umbrella, what they do is they gender swap. That's one of the things that they do. And even though this Silver Surfer isn't a true gender swap, she existed in like one obscure issue, nobody wanted her, okay? And they said that they did this because they didn't want to waste Norrin Radd. However, they already wasted Mr. Fantastic. in the Multiverse of Madness. So that doesn't.
Fantastic Four, not just another Marvel reboot, but the reboot, the cornerstone of a new era, a film positioned to fix everything Marvel broke. But instead of inspiring confidence, this project triggered red flags from the start. Because rather than being a bold new leap into the future, Fantastic Four is already haunted by decisions that feel less like innovation and more like desperation. And at the center of it all, Pedro Pascal. Yes, that Pedro Pascal, the guy who was not Marvel's first choice, or second, or even third. Let's not sugarcoat it. Pascal wasn't cast because he was the perfect Reed Richards. He was cast because he said yes. Reports suggest Marvel spent months shopping this role around. Adam Driver, Jake Gyllenhaal, Matt Smith, names with proven range, presence, and star power, all passed. Not because Reed Richards is a bad character, he's arguably one of Marvel's best, but because nobody wants to be the frontman of a collapsing empire. Pascal stepping into this role wasn't a bold creative choice, it was a compromise. A studio, bruised by failure, settling for a safe pick. But ironically, this safe pick has lit a powder keg of fan backlash. The second Pascal's casting was confirmed, fans took to the internet with fury, and not the fake, clickbait outrage. This was real. From comic book loyalists to longtime MCU supporters, the response was overwhelmingly negative, and Pedro noticed. He even admitted it's the most pushback he's ever received, and that's saying something. He tried to play it off with charm and self-awareness, acknowledging complaints about his age, his appearance, his lack of resemblance to the comic character. But charm doesn't erase symbolism. Because for many fans, Pascal isn't just the wrong fit visually, he represents everything wrong with Marvel's current strategy. Celebrity over substance, popularity over performance, branding over character integrity. It's not about Pascal being a bad actor, he's had strong moments. But is he the kind of transformative performer who becomes a character, like Christian Bale or Robert Downey Jr.? No. Is he going to redefine Mr. Fantastic for a new generation? Highly unlikely. And that's the problem. Marvel had a chance to go bold, to make a casting decision that excited people. Instead, they went predictable, and in doing so, they've made the stakes even riskier. Let's talk cold numbers. Because while Marvel might pretend it cast Pascal for his star power, the box office tells a brutally different story. Pedro Pascal has never successfully carried a blockbuster. Not once. Take a second to really let that sink in. Marvel just handed the future of its cinematic universe to someone who's never led a profitable movie. And we're not talking about obscure indie films here. We're talking big studio efforts, the kind where box office performance matters. Wonder Woman 1984, Pascal was in it, not the lead, but still part of the lineup. That movie was a messy financial disappointment. The Great Wall, disaster. Kingsman, The Golden Circle, flopped critically and underwhelmed financially. Gladiator 2, already projected to struggle. His resume reads like a case study in near misses and underperformance. And yes, he's the face of The Mandalorian. But let's be real, his literal face is barely ever on screen. He wears a helmet 90% of the time. The real star of that show? A green puppet named Grogu. That series' success owes more to Baby Yoda memes and Star Wars nostalgia than anything Pascal has actually done. So why is Marvel gambling everything on him? Because they're out of options. This isn't about Pascal being the best man for the job. This is about Marvel trying to plug a sinking ship with whatever duct tape is lying around. A desperate studio clinging to a name trending on Twitter, hoping fans will forget about character alignment or past flops if they just slap enough glossy marketing on top. But fans haven't forgotten. In fact, they're watching more closely than ever. And when they see Pedro Pascal front and center in Fantastic Four, many won't see Reed Richards. They'll see a studio trying to buy time. A studio that's no longer making decisions for the story, but for survival, and survival, it's not guaranteed. If Pedro Pascal is the face of Marvel's casting crisis, then the Fantastic Four as a whole are ground zero for the culture war Marvel refuses to admit it's fighting. Let's start with the obvious. This isn't just a case of fan complaints over creative choices. This is about patterns that have been building for years and exploding now with the Fantastic Four cast. You've got Pedro Pascal as a Latino Reed Richards, Vanessa Kirby as a Susan Storm many see as miscast, Joseph Quinn, known more for memeable moments in Stranger Things than leading roles, as Johnny Storm, and Eben Moss-Backrack, a solid actor, but a very unconventional Ben Grimm. That's the lineup Marvel is hanging its return to greatness on. But the backlash hasn't just been about individual performances. It's been about the way Marvel keeps casting. and more importantly, why. To many longtime fans, the Fantastic Four cast feels less like the result of storytelling decisions and more like a corporate checklist. Ethnic diversity? Check. Internet-approved actors? Check. TikTok buzz potential? Check. Does the ensemble actually resemble the iconic, tight-knit, sci-fi family that launched the Marvel Universe in the first place? Not really. This isn't an attack on representation, far from it. The problem is Marvel isn't actually representing characters anymore, it's representing demographics. Instead of making bold artistic choices that serve the narrative, they've turned casting into a numbers game, a risk-averse boardroom process, engineered not to tell great stories, but to avoid trending for the wrong reasons on social media. And it's backfiring. When race swapping, gender flipping, and reinvention become so common that they feel expected, they lose their impact. And worse, they start to feel hollow. That's when even audiences who normally welcome inclusivity begin to raise eyebrows. Because at a certain point, fans start asking, do these studios actually care about who these characters are? Or do they just care about getting applause from Twitter threads and YouTube think pieces? Marvel, once the master of blending audience expectations with inspired choices, has lost its finesse. What used to feel fresh now feels forced. And nowhere is that more obvious than with Fantastic Four. The backlash isn't just coming from the anti-woke crowd, it's coming from longtime Marvel readers, people who want the movie to succeed but can't recognize the team they grew up loving. There's also the deeper, unspoken consequence of this culture war casting approach. It divides audiences instead of uniting them. Marvel movies used to be events, something fans of all backgrounds and politics could rally behind. But now, every casting announcement becomes a battle. Every trailer becomes a litmus test. And instead of focusing on story, everyone's talking about statements. The end result? A brand that once brought people together now sparks arguments before a single frame even hits theaters. Marvel isn't losing fans because it's becoming more inclusive. It's losing fans because it's making inclusivity feel like an obligation, not a choice rooted in character or story. It's not enough to cast diversely, you have to write diversely. And right now, the Fantastic Four reboot feels like a perfect storm of misalignment. Characters that don't reflect their comic roots, actors that feel mismatched, and a studio too afraid to admit it might be getting the formula wrong. If Marvel wants to reclaim its place in the culture, it has to stop chasing culture points. Because when casting becomes culture war bait, the only real loser is the story. This goes beyond one casting mistake. It's a symptom of something bigger. A Hollywood machine that cares more about algorithms than artistry. Pedro checks all the industry boxes. Politically vocal? Check. Social media fanbase? Check. Easily memeable? Double check. This wasn't casting for character. This was casting for clout. Marvel confused relevance with resonance, and it shows. Compare this to how they used to cast. Robert Downey Jr. was considered a risk. Chris Evans had to be convinced to take the role. Hemsworth was practically unknown. Those actors became their characters. Pascal, on the other hand, never disappears into a role. He is the role. It gets messy. Insiders claim Fantastic Four went through multiple rewrites, reshoots, and even director disputes. Jessica Chastain was reportedly in talks to play Sue Storm but backed out last minute. The cast chemistry never clicked, with whispers that off-camera tensions between Pascal and co-stars created friction. Worse still, test screenings painted a grim picture. Early audiences called it soulless, clunky, and weirdly lifeless. That feedback led to last-minute edits that only made things worse. One editor described the process as trying to glue a cracked vase together with bubblegum. Meanwhile, the rest of Hollywood is thriving. Top Gun: Maverick brought back movie magic. The Batman reinvented the character for a new era. Dune: Part 2 dazzled with scale and vision. Audiences will show up for movies, just not for Marvel anymore. That hurts, especially for a studio that used to own pop culture. Even inside the superhero world, comparisons are brutal. DC, once the punchline, is now being cautiously praised for James Gunn's bold creative direction. Marvel feels like they're still coasting off a decade-old victory lap. This isn't about hating Pedro Pascal. He's talented, he's charming, but he's the wrong man, in the wrong role, at the worst possible time. And now, with Fantastic Four's failure, Marvel has officially run out of excuses. No more blaming the pandemic. No more blaming trolls. No more hoping fans won't notice. They noticed. What made Marvel great was bold casting, tight writing, and genuine connection with fans. That Marvel is gone. In its place is a soulless content machine that mistakes hashtags for heart. So, what happens now? Does Marvel regroup? Or is this truly the end of the line? Whatever comes next, one thing is clear, it's over. Pedro Pascal was never the problem, but he just became the face of Marvel's greatest mistake. What do you think? Was Pedro Pascal doomed from the start? Can Fantastic Four be salvaged? Or is this really the end of the MCU as we knew it? Sound off in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next deep dive into Hollywood's biggest disasters. Until next time, stay skeptical and stay sharp.